Hey guys, my name is Milton,
I'm Devin.
and we're coming to you with an episode of Bridging the Gap. Trying to talk to you guys about Commander, how to get into it, how to get our ways from more casual games to competitive, right? Today we want to start off with a nice introduction on what is cEDH, right? What is that competitive Commander format or sub-format that we all like to play, we all have a little bit of daunting times with, and getting ourselves nice into the format, right? What do you consider Commander, Devin?
To me, cEDH or Commander in general is supposed to be a fun, casual format where you're able to play with others, you're able to have fun, play games, whether they take hours or minutes, you're just there to have fun with your pals. For competitive, though, that's where you want to win, not as soon as possible. That's what a lot of people take away from cEDH. You're trying to progress your game as fast as possible.
Right.
You're trying to set up a board to where you're able to interact with everyone while also winning at the same time.
And I love how you say that interaction part, right? Like there's definitely some decks that have been doing extremely well, who their entire earlier game plan is just you don't start, right? We're seeing a little bit of that in Tivit, which is doing really exceptionally well. Tivit Cellar Secrets, the commander that says on ETB or declared attack, you get to make everyone vote, make some treasures. On damage, sorry. You get to make those treasures or clues and massively help yourself out, right? Stuff like this where you want to make sure that every turn you're having some sort of interaction to go on, right? One of the big things that we see about as competitive is just you want to make sure that everyone is having a great time by not messing around, right? We see a lot of competitive communities have rules on this, right? The cEDH Nexus Discord has a very strict rule about if you're bringing in a low-end commander to the table, just don't come to the table. And one of those big things is how do we kind of determine commanders that are most viable in Commander or in competitive Commander? We have seen quite a lot of commanders in the last couple of years. I think the newest count we had was like 2,000 new commanders in the last 10. Something like that, some outrageous amount. And very few of that relatively get into that commander of I'm competitive level, right? What are some of your favorites, right? I know you have a Corval deck that you just adore.
Yeah, right now Corval is my favorite commander. 5-drop, 4/4. When he ETBs or attacks, you sacrifice a permanent, and whenever you sacrifice a permanent, you get to draw a card and put a +1/+1 counter on it. It gives you hand advantage. It does make you seem like you're making your board smaller, but the hand advantage it provides is fantastic. It's great. Obnixilis is another one that I just recently picked up.
The new one from March of the Machines, Aftermath, right?
Yes.
Aftermath is a good set. I do like it. And you've been having a really great time with it, with small pingers, just incremental value, gaining a lot of value off everyone playing cEDH, right?
Yep. It also allows me to have a pseudo hand size. Basically, it just exiles cards off the top of your library, and then it just allows you to speed up the game really fast.
Very nice, right? And so you definitely love those more faster paced decks, those goes guns blazing. For me, I'm very much the opposite, right? One of my favorite decks of all time has been Jorn, God of Winter. It's a 2 and a green. When it comes in, you have the God on the front side and the Dimir on the back. Beautiful. When it attacks, you untap all your snow permanents for huge, massive stacks decks, right? You're getting to play your Winter Orbs, your Static Orbs, your back to basics. Amazing cards, and you can switch that play into mid-range, right? And that's one of the things that I've definitely seen a lot of people just overall confused on when it comes to competitive, right? What sort of things do we see the most of, right? As far as archetypes that you mostly see encountered. I know that especially we're right now in the midst of a turbo swing, but it hasn't always been like that. In fact, that's fairly recent.
Currently, right now, I think hand advantage commanders are what's picking up speed.
Very true, very true.
Prom and Timna is a really good one. Whenever you deal combat damage to a player, Timna allows you to draw cards. Crom itself says whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, you get to draw cards. Both commanders also extremely great colors: white, black, blue, red. All it does is draw cards. Your hand advantage should never be less than your opponent's.
Very true, very true. And for me, like I love decks that can kind of piggyback off of that, right? We're seeing new cards like Ogre's Bowmasters, cards that people are really considering format warping. While I don't really agree with that, I think it's just a really strong card, but format warping cards have existed, right? We see Ristic and Mystic Remora cards that say when your opponent casts certain things, you get to draw those cards, right? Hugely more impactful in cEDH than they are in more casual levels because people are kind of pacing themselves out a lot more casually. When in competitive, you don't have that luxury. You can't afford to be reserved, right? Another big thing about cEDH that we have seen a lot of concerns over is the barrier to entry, right? You and I have very long discussed and had different differentiations on what the price point for getting into competitive should be, right? You're, in your own personal life, a lot more anti-proxy as opposed to myself.
I'm still anti-proxy, but I understand that cards are expensive. In cEDH, a lot more people are lenient to proxies. I have become more lenient to it. But proxies themselves, in my opinion, aren't really great. In my opinion, they ruin the flow of the game at sometimes. But if you're playing in the competitive scene, then it's fair.
So why do you think that they ruin that little point, right? You mentioned that they ruin the flow, but for me myself, I play entire proxy decks, right? I love it. I think that one, having that nice continuity of everything looking the same is really beautiful, but not limiting yourself to the budgets that you can pull out from your job or your internal checks goes a long way for me, right?
For cEDH, I understand that proxies are fine, but for like casual plays, if you're proxying an entire deck, I'm kind of against that just because like it's casual. You shouldn't be proxying like 10-cent cards. It is a hobby. You should enjoy your hobby. You should put money into your hobby. But back to cEDH, proxy friendly for cEDH is completely fine. Cards are dumb expensive. The average price of a deck is anywhere from like $500 to $1,000. So like me having my Corvold, which is at 3,200 versus your stack of paper, that's completely different. But it happens.
Right, and at the end of the day, right, you should absolutely be more than happy just playing the commander, getting it as best you can, and kind of taking away one of those huge barriers to entry does go a long way, right? It's a huge, amazing thing, especially when we go out to tournaments now, right?
Yeah.
The Eminence tournaments, right? Eminence is a company who has sponsored quite a few tournaments in the last few years, and kind of taking over that scene from the former kind of head, which was the Monarch company, I believe. Eminence is doing an amazing job, in my personal opinion, right? Not only have they been starting to make tournaments much more accessible, easier to buy into, proxy friendly, but they've also massively kind of updated how we even look at cEDH, right? And we'll definitely get back to that. But as far as tournaments, right, like relatively, you don't go to nearly as many.
Eminence was my first tournament I ever went to.
Silicon Dynasty.
Yep, that was back in January. It was a really
fun
fun
time.
experience. The way players play their decks and interact is completely different from how you typically go to tournaments. When you're playing with your friends, you know their little tips and tricks. You know how they play and everything. When you go to a tournament, everyone plays completely different. Everyone has their own little gimmicks.
Super fun.
So every
Super
deck that
expensive.
you think you know how it plays, they're completely different when you go to a tournament. I think I went against 3 Winota players, and all of them had generally the same basis for how the deck plays, but they all had their own little gimmicks inside the deck.
Yeah, and like Eminence was just a great time. The atmosphere was incredible. Like even the night before, we were hanging out down by the in the lounge. Amazing time. It was really convenient for me because I forgot my entire commander. We drove like 6 hours, and I was like, only time we were there is I realized I had forgot my Kenrith.
No, we were 4 hours out. We were getting food, and you're like, I don't have my commander.
Yep, and I even messaged their Discord, and I was like, does anyone have a spare Kenrith? And everyone's like, why would you need a Kenrith? What you doing there, buddy? And I was like, well, funny thing. But it was an amazing time. A lot of people from the internet that we've gotten to hang out with, talk to, a lot of faces to names that have been super helpful, right? Another great place that I've enjoyed tournaments personally is online through the Nexus Discord server.
Those are the Chaos tournaments you
The
take.
Chaos tournaments are such fun. I remember my first one, I came in 32nd out of, I think, 100 people. But the second time I went, I came in 13th, bringing Jorn, right? Again, one of my own personal classics. Nice Staxy mid-range build. And then even when we went to Silicon, I brought Kenrith and came in 5th, right? Huge achievement, really proud of myself. And ever since then, right, it definitely highlighted some of the skills I needed to work on and build myself up from there, which is just one of the really great benefits of tournaments that you don't get when you're at your local play group, right? Mm-hmm. When you're at your play group, you kind of see a lot of internal discussions, internal caveats. But when you're in the high end, no one knows about you, you are just a face in a win con, that's a great time, right? Another one that's coming out right now, we're planning on going to in San Diego in August, I believe. Yeah. Really looking forward to that.
I believe that's the 5th and 6th.
It's going to be great. I'm loving it. And that's even prep for another one. But one of the big concerns that we have always had about Commander is just assessing power levels, right? And cEDH kind of takes away all the guesswork out of that. And I love it so much for that. That I'm walking in here, I'm doing my best. Power level is as good as I can make this. Let's go, right? And you and I have even in our own LGS had a few issues with that, kind of determining power levels, kind of getting anything from that. And like you do that a little bit better than I do personally, of personal assessment. How do you kind of view your own decks and assess them in a cEDH mindset?
Through cEDH, knowing what cards are powerful and what cards are proper for a deck, you're able to tell which cards are lackluster. Such cards like Cultivate, Kodama's Reach. You play less basics in cEDH.
Right. Casual staples kind of just drop off the side of the earth a little bit.
Yeah, so you're able to turn back the clock. Instead of you're playing fast mana rocks, you're playing those cards. So you're able to tone down a deck greatly just by swapping out specific cards. So by doing power levels, you typically want to stay within the realm of your play group. Power levels range from, my opinion, 0 to 10. So 0 to 3 would be base precons in my opinions. Some precons do come out as higher levels. We've seen that in the past with like the Commander precons, the monocolored ones where they have like the medallions in them, Emerald Medallion.
Oh, that's right. Those are really solid.
Those have a lot of good cards in them. And same with the Lord of the Rings precons that just recently dropped. Those precons themselves have great, amazing reprints that are good for cEDH. Staples like Toxic Deluge, Reanimate, Heroic Intervention. Those are great cards, but the base precons themselves are also really good. The printing of new cards in those precons that make those decks pop off and explode, you can say those are 4s to 5s.
Right, and like even the new Lord of the Rings set itself is pretty solid, right? It's got a few nice little outliers. Orcish Bowmasters, really strong, like we kind of mentioned earlier. Really strong, really hitting on those draw go decks that we see pop up every now and then. Amazing utility. I'm personally a big fan of the counterspell Stern Scolding, right? Really nice, hits a lot of relevant cEDH threats that just don't come up in more casual stuff,
Dockside
right?
is one of them. Even
Hitting Dockside, Mind Sensor, Op Agents, really great, right? Another thing that is just really nice for cEDH is the new Call of the Ring. The entire Temptation mechanic is just really great. But Call of the Ring has definitely been making its rounds. A hugely advantageous draw engine, repeatable, reusable. Make sure opponents have to just address those sort of stuff.
I was iffy on the whole the ring tempts you mechanic, but when I did my pre-release event and I opened up multiple Nazguls and they just went wild so quick that the ring tempts you is a pretty solid mechanic. It makes one of your creatures legendary. And then the next time it tempts you, your legendary creature now draws you a card. Then the third time it tempts you, it can't be blocked by anything bigger than it. And then the fourth time it tempts you, it just deals an additional 3 damage to each player.
Very nice, right? Any mechanic that has absolutely no draw side, downside, automatically just gets into my good graces. I'm a big fan, right? And just the One Ring itself, that amazing chase card that everyone's hunting after, really great. Still really good if you don't get the 1 of 1, right? Even if you get one that doesn't look as pretty as everything else, right? That's still a pretty solid card. Not in every deck, but definitely something I've always kept an eye out. Protection from everything until your next turn is not bad. Gets around a lot of brain freeze abuse.
It's also indestructible, and it also draws you cards.
Even the lands that are coming out, Mount Doom, really
Love Mount
nice for your Obnix list. I'm really loving it.
Love Mount Doom. Pay 3, deal 1 to everyone. I just get 1 card off the top.
Pay 3, draw 1 in your decks. There you go.
Pseudo card draw. It's great.
Very nice, very nice. Very nice, and nice little pingers, always great. Anything else that you kind of keep an eye out in Lord of the Rings? Because overall, I'm kind of wanting to see how the set shapes out, but...
In my opinion, the entire set as a whole is more better for casual play than it is for competitive play. There's only specific niche cards in it that are good for competitive play. The Delighted Halfling is great for green plus decks. You don't really need it in mono green just because you have Allosaurus Shepherd. Allosaurus Shepherd just does what Delighted Halfling does, but better. All your green spells can't be countered, while Delighted Halfling only makes your legendary creatures can't be countered. So it's great for using it to cast your commanders and green plus decks. It's great for also just being a generic colorless mana dork.
So another thing is just, even aside from Lord of the Rings, in competitive Commander, it's one of those formats where you always want to keep an eye on every set that comes out. Every new card might have a place, probably doesn't, but you never know, right? Amazing time just going through that entire wide range of collection of potential cards, seeing what you can kind of slip in on the radar, what's going to be your new tech. Amazing, right? For example, my Heliod Warped Eclipse deck, really fun, love it super hard. But the ability to wheel on someone else's turn with something like using Days Undoing as a discontinuity, amazing, right? Super amazing, super great.
Yeah, but now with Orcus Bowmaster, you have to think about it.
No, I don't. I will absolutely shotgun this in front of
21 damage?
21 damage, win on the stack. Let's go. It's the Heliod way. It's the Azorius way. Win above them, call it a day. Yes, it is.
That's 21 damage. It's 21 cards for me, too.
No, it isn't. You just don't live to see them, right? Easy fix.
I don't know about that one, Chief.
I do. That's why you keep losing.
Nah.
There we go. But overall, one of the most amazing things about competitive is you just get so many wide ranges of potential options, right? You can play anything you want, from Obnix list to running a Kenrith 5-color abuse. Even some monocolor decks really pop in and make a shine, right? Even the new latest Cash Cards Unlimited saw Mono Blue Teferi do really well, right? There's just so many amazing things, amazing options for commanders. And one of the definite things that we definitely want to look at another time is what makes a commander really great, right? What are those ones you can filter out, kind of go through, see where we were at,
like
right?
what's good to look for.
Exactly.
If it's card advantage or mana stuff. Yeah, we definitely need to talk about that.
I'm definitely excited, right? Kind of take a look at some of our favorites. But any other thoughts you want to think of in a general cEDH atmosphere before we wrap up for the day?
No, we pretty much hit every mark so far.
That's what I always love to hear. In the meantime, my name is Milton.
I'm Devin.
And this has been Bridging the Gap. Really hope to see you soon.